Good morning, one and all. How are the good and holy people of God this morning? Did anyone sleep last night? On a normal Saturday morning at 9:30, how many of you would normally be sleeping? Thanks for being here. That means a lot. I am going to go out on a limb. And first of all, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to steal an image from my boss, from Bishop Harris. I know there are a few Allentown people. Sorry we stole them from you. I also know there are a few Rockville Center people. Sorry, Allentown people, we got them. But you know what? I'm standing in his place today, so I feel justified in stealing his image. It's like he's giving the homily, all right? Second thing is I'm going out on a limb because I want to start by saying a word about Catholic archaeology. "9:30, Saturday morning, he's talking about archaeology. Father Joe is up here cringing, saying, I told them he got it, he's okay. But bear with me. Are you with me for a minute? Okay. In the 1930s, they began an excavation under St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. That excavation had a couple of different purposes in mind, but in the end of it all, they were able to recover the bones of St. Peter. In 1968, Pope Paul VI announced that after 30 years of excavation, after years of painful study, careful, patient study, and rigorous testing and doubt and certainty, they came to the conclusion with certainty that these were indeed the bones of St. Peter, that they recovered the bones of St. Peter himself. Pretty amazing, huh? Early 2000s, Pope Benedict directs an excavation under the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, where they recover the sarcophagus that carried the remains of St. Paul. And so we have our possession. We know they're there, the bones of St. Peter and the sarcophagus with the remains of St. Paul. It begs a question, though. How on earth did they ever lose the bones of St. Peter and St. Paul? I mean, really, who's the one who says, oops, my bad? You see, it's a little bit of a complicated reality, but the fact of the matter is that they always had a sense they were there, that they were down there, deep down, that the basilicas were built over the remains where the people used to pray around the bones of St. Peter and the place where he was executed, and the bones of St. Paul near the place where he was executed. There was always that underlying belief, that hope, that consensus, but nobody knew exactly where. They had an idea. Ladies and gentlemen, isn't that true in certain ways in terms of our own approach to our Catholic truth, the truth of our Catholic faith, the things that we believe deep down inside about who we are as God's holy, beloved people, about what Jesus taught, about the truth of his death, his resurrection, and his living presence among us? Isn't it true that somehow or another in the world today and in our own lives, we've kind of let those truths get buried underneath? We all know that they're there, don't we? Even out in the world, some of the people who are either lukewarm or antithetical to the faith of the Catholic Church kind of say, all right, there's something underneath. There's a sense that it's there. The world is willing to say, pat on the head, very good, do your holy things. But somehow or another, we need at times to do a little bit of a spiritual excavation, don't we? To dig down deep into the truth of who we are, to dig down deep to encounter Jesus anew, to be set on fire with the power of his gospel, and to remember that he who died on the cross and rose from the dead is alive today. Jesus lives, and he walks with us, and he wants to be part of our lives, and he's putting us on a path that has a destination. We're not just wandering through the desert, are we? Indeed, we were made for something great. You see, somehow or another, those truths, our deep faith, our living faith, can sometimes get kind of covered over. We live in a very confusing world. We live in a world that's very messy. Let's be honest with each other. Some of our own lives are very messy. The world around us is very messy. Life can be a very complicated reality. And sometimes the messiness of life can kind of cover over those truths, make us feel like they're getting buried down underneath. Sometimes my own personal sin, the sin of my life, my weakness and my doubts and my fears. Sometimes my own pride and my selfishness kind of buries those truths down even more, and we need to be able to kind of dig through and recover them and hold on to them and live them fully. You see, the reality of the cross can at times knock us off our game. Let's be honest, right? And kind of let us stumble and knock us off the beam a little bit. But we're never out. We're never out. The Lord is always picking us up. The Lord elevates us, right? He picks us up. Isn't that what's going on in the gospel today? Today the church celebrates the feast of Mary Magdalene, St. Mary Magdalene. And isn't this exactly what's going on in her life at the moment of the resurrection on that Easter Sunday morning? What a great thing, what a privilege to be able to celebrate on this feast day, that we happen to be together to celebrate on the Feast of Mary Magdalene. It's like Easter in July. There she is. She goes to the tomb in the darkness of night. Remember, think about darkness. I mean, we never really experience darkness. There's always some kind of, like we talked about light pollution, right? There's always something out there. Think about going there to the tomb in the dark of night and finding the stone rolled back, not seeing the body of Jesus in there, running back to the apostles, the disciples, and saying, somebody's taken his body. Everybody goes running. John believes. Peter walks back. And Mary stays outside the tomb, weeping, crying. The messiness of life, the reality of the cross, knocked her down. Somehow deep down inside, she remembered the words that Jesus said. But even seeing the angels and seeing Jesus himself, she says, thinking he's the gardener, if you've taken his body, will you give it back? There she is at a place and in a moment that should be making things better, and she's feeling worse. Doesn't that sometimes happen, that the things that should be making us better actually make the sting even worse? And it's not until she hears Jesus calling her by name, Mary, that she comes alive. The encounter with Jesus Christ changes everything. There were all kinds of people identifying Mary Magdalene with different people in the gospel. We don't know everything, but what we know is this, that at one point in her life, when she was down and out, when she was what she thought was her worst, Jesus lifted her up, elevated her, and gave her hope. The encounter with Jesus changed her life. And here she is at the tomb again. And here it is again, Jesus lifts her up and gives her new life, new happiness, new holiness. Friends, the encounter with Jesus Christ changes everything. It changes your life. It changes my life. What a great thing when we can be tapped on the shoulder by Jesus Christ, when we can hear him whisper our name, where he can kind of shock us back into life and lift us up. You know, for me, this is a particular honor. First of all, I don't know that I've ever said Mass for a crowd like this. This is amazing. But also for me, it's particularly profound. I went to school right here at St. John's University. And this was one of those moments of encounter with Jesus for me. And I keep coming back here, spiritually as well as in reality. It was here. I came here as a college freshman. I wasn't a seminarian, but I had that conviction. Again, it was like down deep with the excavated stuff in my life. It was down there that I wanted to be a priest. But I came here as a regular college student, commuting on the Long Island Railroad from Lindenhurst. And it was here coming to daily Mass. At that time, there's a beautiful chapel. You've been over there, the church chapel. At the time, the chapel was much smaller. It was a commuter school. We didn't have a resident population here. It was sort of like a cave set in. It was really nice. And I remember going in there for Mass. And for some reason, the words always just came to me from the Transfiguration. Wow, Lord, it's good to be here. In the midst of everything that's going on, I would say, you know, sometimes I'd be in there with tests coming up in the afternoon or worried about getting this done or that done. But somehow or another, being there at the Eucharist, Lord, man, it's good to be here. And sometimes I was there and I was fully engaged. And sometimes I was there and it was like, you know, our Father who art in heaven, got to get that paper done, thy kingdom come. But it was here at St. John's where I had to sort of like, where the time came where I had to say, you know, enough thinking about this, you got to do something about it. It was here where you had to make these decisions. So to come back here to celebrate the Eucharist is particularly profound because Mass at St. John's meant the world to me. And when you think about it, isn't that our encounter with Jesus Christ today? Really and truly, we elevate that host, the precious bread, become the body of Jesus Christ, and the sacred cup, the sacred chalice containing his blood. We hold it up high, we elevate it, so that he can enter into the messiness of our lives and elevate us. So that you might hear his whisper as you hear those words, the body of Christ, the blood of Christ. And let him speak to you as deeply and as personally as he did with Mary Magdalene on that Easter Sunday morning. You know, the encounter with Mary Magdalene changed everything. And I've got to conclude with a little bit of a warning. That encounter will indeed change you and change everything. It's not just that she feels better about herself. That's nice, okay? But Jesus didn't come into the world so that we can feel better about ourselves. He sets her on fire as a powerful witness to the truth of his resurrection. The love of Christ impels us, we hear in the first reading, St. Paul tells us. The love of Christ impels us to be on fire with Jesus Christ. And so it is for us. He sends us forth from here as powerful witnesses to his gospel. There are many, many people in our lives and in our world who are sitting outside the tomb in the dark weeping. There are many people who have that faith down deep, but find it just covered over and are hard to do that excavation. And maybe, like Mary Magdalene, going back to the apostles and telling them, I've seen him. He really is alive. Everything he said is true. Maybe the Lord is sending you today. You're given this encounter so that your life may be lifted up, but you're given this encounter so that you might announce it and help other people encounter Jesus Christ in the very same way. I never get tired of saying this. I say it over and over and over again. The world desperately needs credible, joyful witnesses of Jesus Christ. That's the excavation you and I need to do, the archaeology we need to do. The world needs joyful, credible witnesses of Jesus Christ. We certainly don't need a bunch of grumps yelling, holy, holy, holy. And very simply, I want to say to you today, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for staying close to Jesus. In her grief and in her darkest place, Mary Magdalene knew that the place was to be close to the body of Jesus Christ. Thank you for realizing yourself that there's nothing better. What we need most is to be close to the body, not the dead body in the tomb, but the risen body of Jesus Christ, that we need to stay anchored close to it. And thank you for being that joyful, credible witness of Jesus Christ to set the world on fire with his love. The love of Jesus Christ impels us.